This is the social media tip of the week, and we are live here on Facebook and inside the Church Marketers group and doing this a little bit different. We're doing a live interview with Raquel. So Raquel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the church you're a part of to set this up?
Yeah, for sure. First thing, hi everyone. Good afternoon or morning, wherever you might be right now. Like Ryan said, my name is Raquel Serrano. I'm here from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised. And I am the communications manager for Project New Life Chicago, or as we say, Projeto Vida Nova Chicago. We are a predominantly Brazilian church here in the city. A little petite congregation of about 50 or so, but we're a loving family. We're building, we're growing, we're trying to impact our community, impact the city, and I'm happy to be here, happy to be a part of the ministry that I'm involved in, and thankfully I'm in a position that allows me to learn a lot when it comes to marketing and social media for churches like mine, small and or bilingual. So I'm happy to be here.
Very cool. Yeah, and that's the topic today, bilingual churches, multilingual churches, and then what that looks like on social media. Because I know you and I are part of a couple groups.
Yes.
And that topic comes up, and I haven't ever really had a great answer for people. Because we do tips, every single week, and sometimes people are asking, well, what about bilingual or multilingual churches? And so you had a great tip. So why don't we start, before we get into the tip, with what are some of the unique challenges out there when it comes to a multilingual church and social media?
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. So off the bat, obviously, if you're a multilingual church, if you're running two languages, whether it's English and Spanish, whether it's English and Portuguese like mine, any type of multilingual, bilingual church is going to run into the issue of how do you communicate with your members and potential first-time visitors and members online in the language that best fits them. So if we work with Facebook pages, let's say, or which is basically any social media. If you go ahead, you put up one post promoting an event that you have going on. You have to make the decision. Do I write this post in one language, or do I put translations for every relevant language to that post and the same thing? And that's where you have these really long, bulky messages, 2-3 paragraphs long. Maybe the English takes up all of the top, what's seen usually on the feed, and then maybe your Spanish speakers have to press see more. Maybe they don't, so there's a chance that they never get that message. Same thing with images and with graphic designs. When it comes to your copy, do you put two languages? Is that too crowded? Do you only put one? Do you run the risk of excluding another? When it comes to social media and bilingual churches, there's a lot that you have to balance out. It's honestly just trying to figure out the most efficient way possible to keep things clean, to keep things organized, but to still share the message that you're trying to share.
Yeah, and so that's a great setup, but it also leads into the tip that you kind of were promoting out there. And so I wanted to really share that with our audience as well. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that feature that you discovered and are sharing when it comes to Facebook and how you can turn that on and what that really is. So give us an overview on that.
Yeah, definitely. So it was actually something that my pastor discovered. I took over our church's social media and just marketing efforts completely in March of this year. And before I did, he was the one running the Facebook page. And I remember one day for Easter, he had this promo rolling out, and I saw a feature that gave you an option to change the message language. And it says show in English, show in Portuguese. And I was like, wait, what's this? So I started looking into it, and I saw that Facebook pages now have the option for you not to rely on the automatic translating that the page will do for you. You can add your own translation, or better said, your own message. And depending on the default language of a person's Facebook account, that's the message that they'll see. So in my case, obviously, we'll be using English and Portuguese. If I have a graphic that has Portuguese text, the copy's in Portuguese, what I will do then is for the Portuguese message, just write the regular promotional message that I want to put, we'll see you here, bring this, bring that, the usual. For the English message, I can tailor that to that English speaking community. I will put the translation to the graphic, some of the more important details there in case maybe the English speaker isn't able to grab the context just by looking at the graphic. Put the details there, the translation of it, and then the same message as the Portuguese in English. This allows churches to not depend on that default automatic translating that Facebook will do for us sometimes. Because as we've heard, the same thing with Facebook, the same thing with Google Translate, these translations aren't always the best. They're not very accurate. It gives churches the opportunity to speak to more than one community, more than one audience, and give it that personal touch, which I think is so important, especially as churches. When we do our Facebook pages, it's not just a platform for us to just promote and, kind of spam people with what we want to invite them to. It's a place where we connect in the same way we would inside the church building, but online. So I think that personal touch is so important, and to be able to do that without relying on AI and all of that, just give them the personal touch and be able to reach so many people.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm curious, does it basically, the Facebook look at an individual, see what language they have set as their default, and then if they come to a post with this feature turned on and you've done the translation, it automatically just shows them that translation, right?
Automatically. It's the coolest thing in the world. I love showing people in my congregation. I'll have two people pull out their phones, and then one, I know that there's a set of Portuguese and I know the other set's of English. I'll have them look at the same Facebook page post, and they will look at me and be like, that is so cool. They will see two different messages depending on the default language. So on Facebook, if you're on the desktop, you see in that corner of the sidebar, it says English, Spanish, French, whatever language that you have your account set on, that you see all of your buttons, you see all of your other, everything in your newsfeed, whatever is the main language on the overall account, that's the language that will be shown to you if a page has provided a translation for that language.
I love it. Do you know, I'm curious, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball out at you. Do you know what this works with captions? Like when people are captioning videos, does Facebook automatically try to translate that? Can you upload multiple captions that have the same effect?
So what I've noticed so far when it comes to putting captions on videos, my way of doing it is to upload the SRT, the SRT file into the video, and then the captions show. From what I've noticed, Facebook does not offer automatic translations on those yet. I'm crossing my fingers on it, but that would be another good tip for a bilingual church. If you have a video up of a sermon or of a message that's in one language, creating that SRT file and then uploading it to your video in the other language that you know is predominant in your congregation will allow both to be able to watch the video and understand what's going on. So definitely a good use of adding captions to a video.
Yeah, that's really cool. Let me also just say this too. Raquel has done the hard work of walking you step by step on how to do this. We've posted this as a guest blog post over at SocialChurch, and she's done a great job with images, step 1, 2, 3, 4, really easy to follow. It shows you how to turn the feature on and how to actually go through that with a post. So thank you so much for doing that. I'm curious, would you have any other tips, insights when it comes to other social media managers that are kind of facing this challenge? Because it's hard enough trying to figure out social media for churches, especially a lot of people doing it on the side, let alone trying to do it in multiple languages. So any other tips, insights, ideas that you found along the way?
Yes, definitely. First things first, I want to start off with some encouragement. As someone who works full time and does the social media on the side, I mean, the amount of time that I put into it, I call this my full-time job. It's what I love to do. This is my ministry. But it can be so hard sometimes finding the time and the energy and even the wisdom and understanding what's the right move to make. First thing I would say is, it's okay. You're not alone. We've got your back. And a big helpful tip would be take a look at your audience, your church audience. Something that we discuss here and in a lot of other groups is that your church cannot be all for all people. There has to be that you will have an idea pretty much of who your church attracts. Who does God send to your church? What kind of, not only in demographics as in age and maybe nationality or language, but, just every type of area and aspect. Like my church is really big on family. So the people we see drawn mostly to our church are people either with growing families or they need healing in that area. So that's kind of our specialty. But when it comes to language, you don't want to push yourself to do too much if you don't have to. If you know without a doubt that your congregation is English, Spanish, or whatever other language combination, then that's what you focus on. If you are having, if you or your pastor have this vision for attracting a new community, attracting a new audience, a new demographic, then you want to go ahead and begin working on that. But I would suggest slowly, especially if you're already working bilingual or trilingual in some cases. We want to reach out to the new communities for sure, but being able to reach people on social media in different languages, as hard as it is. So I would definitely suggest take a really good, realistic look at who your audience is. Focus on that. If you already have a bilingual audience and you haven't transitioned into doing bilingual social media management, then my suggestion would be, of course, start on Facebook. Facebook is already starting to make it easy for you with the Facebook pages. One of these days, I'm hoping soon, Facebook groups will be able to have that translation feature.
Yeah.
From there, maybe start Twitter. On Twitter, what I've noticed helps a lot is that if you're using short phrases, just put them on the same tweet. And then if you're using bigger chunks of text, you're going to have to double post. So one English, one Spanish, back to back. And then that makes it easier for your audience. The Spanish speakers will like and retweet the Spanish tweet. Your English speakers will like the other one. And that's how that'll work out. On Instagram, make use of the space. On Instagram, we can use so many characters that it doesn't really hurt.
You're popular.
On Instagram, what I'll do is that, again, I don't rely on the automatic translation. You put the text that you need the people to see the most. If you know it's going to be a Brazilian event, you want the Portuguese up top, you put the English at the bottom. Use a combo of hashtags that'll reach both audiences. Being bilingual on social media, promoting your church, promoting your ministries, your services, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of time, a lot of perseverance. But it's possible. You have to do a bit more extra work than if you were just monolingual, but you can do it. And I promise, the effects have been so life-changing, not only for us, our congregation, but for the people who have been able to find us. In our case, we have Brazilians who will say, we just got approved to come over, but we don't have a church here. We don't know where there are other Brazilians, we're starting a family. And for them to be able to go on Facebook and find not only English posts, but posts in their language, and to know that we can reach out to them in that same way, it means so much to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things we're huge at here at SocialChurch is the idea on social media that we're thoughtful. And we carry that over when we talk about people and the guest experience as well. But when you're doing the hard work of those translations and people see that, they immediately say, hey, they're thinking about me. Exactly. They care enough about me to think about it, to target it for me, to make it easy for me. So I think that's just a huge principle in social media in general, is just that thoughtfulness that just communicates so much. I want to jump over really quick, and again, another curveball, but you handle one. You handle that one really well. But as someone who's doing this, you kind of jokingly said, it sounds like you've got 2 full-time jobs. and your pastor was doing this maybe before you. So another thing that we're really big on is encouraging churches and other pastors to do exactly what your pastor has done. Help bring up other people in the church, in the ministry, and empower them to help them run their social media accounts.
Right.
Sometimes that's volunteers, sometimes that's interns, sometimes that's staff. But any tips you would have for other volunteers or people who feel like they've got 2 full-time jobs on how to manage it? How do you approach it? How do you work with your lead pastor? And I'm not saying you have to cover all that, but is there anything that's really stood out in your journey that you would say, hey, let's share this as well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. My pastor, like all other pastors, works so hard to try to do his absolute best to keep the church running, to keep the people healthy, well-fed in a spiritual sense. And when I got to take over the social media, it was a privilege for me to know that I could do what I knew I was passionate about, to do what I believed that God had equipped me for. And to be able to take something off of their plate, but something that I would definitely suggest for any other volunteers or anyone else working maybe even full-time or anything like that to manage their church's social media is I would pray always and always for humility. And it was a really, really important lesson for me, especially it's a recent one for me this last weekend and everything. When we're at a church, we have these God-given leaders, and it's our job to help them in the calling that they have, in the ministry that they have. And even if what we do is behind a computer, we have an impact. And just the humility to recognize our leaders, the humility to understand, to be able to fully really feel the impact that our efforts are having on the world, that things aren't always easy. You might not always agree. Maybe your pastor has a hard time letting go of the social media. Pray for humility. Maybe there's no room in the budget to make room for scheduling tools or Photoshop or anything like that. I would pray for humility. In any situation that I felt like I didn't exactly have everything that I needed, I prayed for humility, humility for this mission, humility before God, humility before my leaders, and then take what you have and run with it. Try to make the absolute best of what's been given to you. And if more is given to you, that is great. If you are stuck with what you have, you can do it. You can most definitely do it. But that would be my heart suggestion. It would be just, constantly pray that you never become too frustrated or too dissatisfied that you can't see the efforts and the effects behind your ministry and things like that. Just humility. That would be my suggestion.
I love it. That you knocked that out of the park as well. That is awesome. That is a huge tip. Maybe the best tip of the week we've ever had.
Oh my gosh.
And it comes on the heels of not even the topic we really started off with. So that is awesome. Yeah, definitely a prayer that we all could pray, because there's all those times when you're working with anybody else, especially under leadership, that humility is so important.
Yes.
And to think that it's not, because I think by nature, social media managers are kind of feel like, hey, we want to help get the word out. We're doing everything we can.
Right.
And then when we hit those obstacles or pain points or other issues, or leadership didn't love our idea, and we're like, well, but it would be, it worked so awesome. It goes back to that humility, so that's so important. So
yes, and I'm so thankful. I love my pastors. They are leaders that I feel fully 1,000% confident that I can stand behind and follow. But you still need it. So yeah. Absolutely.
Well, as we wrap this up, you've just been a wisdom of tips on tips. So anything else that you throw out to the audience as we kind of wrap this tip up?
Oh man. Big or small, monolingual, bilingual, multilingual, your church is doing an amazing work, an amazing job. We are reaching lives. We are being the hands and feet of God. And I know that nowadays, especially, people can't see that with social media. There are still some churches that, they're turning their backs on it. They're saying that they don't need it. They don't want it. They don't. And that's not the case. We, as social media managers, as marketing professionals, what we're doing is being just an extension of what the church always has been. This is that new generation reaching the nations, and it's not a replacement for face-to-face. It's not a replacement ever for meeting physically in the church house. But this is ministry. Don't you ever let anyone tell you otherwise. This is your ministry. This is easily what God has called you to do, and your work is making an impact. Your work is worth the effort. You're doing great. Keep going. We're okay.
That's awesome. And we're recording this on a Wednesday, that midweek. So that's the perfect encouragement, I think, for a lot of people to get through the week.
Yes,
so
yes, we're okay.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This has been awesome. And I'm excited to follow along in your journey. So as you're finding tips, you've got such a generous heart to share these with other people. I really appreciate that about you. So I'm excited. Anytime you're learning, let me know, because we will be happy to share it with our audience. That's what we love to do.
No, for sure. And I'd be more than happy to share forward.
All right. Sounds good. God bless.
All right. God bless, guys. Thanks.